Okay, morning everybody. Let's get cracking with this. First of all, I'll give you a brief introduction to the Adroit HMI. Then we'll run through how to connect a device to the software, what PLC configuration is required, and what SCADA configuration is required. Then I'll show you the demo of it actually running, and then we'll have a little question and answer session. Okay, let's get started. Okay, just to recap, Adroit, what does it actually stand for? Well, it's an acronym, Advanced Distributed Real-Time Object-Oriented Intelligent Toolkit. It also has a French meaning, meaning dexterous or flexible, and that's where we get it from. Okay, we are situated here in Johannesburg, and we have sold licenses throughout the world in over 6 continents and over 40 countries, and there's in excess of 30,000 licenses running at the moment. So to get hold of the software, go to the website at the address above here, adroitscada.com. You can click the download software. You'll be directed to a page where we've got a download link and a link to the documentation there. So that would get you going, and then you can install it and start having fun. So just recapping on what the Adroit Ignite is all about, the different component levels. Start off at the bottom at the data layer, which is all your front-end devices, basically, and Adroit can talk to over 100 of different devices. Then we have the agent server level, which is the real-time database, which handles all the agents and the scanning and the alarming and the data logging, etc. of these. Combined with that, we have the Ignite server, which is our graphic server, which exposes all the data sources and acts as a repository for all the graphic forms. On top of that, we have our client layer, which is our designer and our operators. Different kinds of operators that we have. We have real-time operators. We've got mobile Adroit Air connections and also web clients. As I said, we talk to over 100 different devices. The one I've chosen today is a Mitsubishi FX5U, which I'll show you how to connect to. Also, just to recap on the agents, agents are our intelligent objects. It's more than a tag. It's a tag with a layer of intelligence. And then we have different kinds of agents. The ones we're focusing on today would be the analog and the digital, which are the main components. Also, from a graphic form, from a display, our graphic forms are actually our mimics. So we've got a whole lot of static images, static objects that we can have, that we can animate using behaviors and create an animated graphic form where we can control and monitor from. So our objective today is we're going to take I've got a little test rig, which looks like that. And we're going to connect to our PLC. Let me just show you what it looks like. Go back one. This is my test rig here. And what I'm going to be doing is just basically toggling a switch to bring on my output. So I can switch that one on and off, and then I can also turn my dial here, my potentiometer, and get an analog input coming into the PLC. Okay, so that's basically how we're gonna run today. Okay, we're back. Okay, so let's get going. So let's have a look at the PLC setup, where we'd have a look at the IP address and the port and the global labeling or the mapping. And then we'll look at what we have to do in the Ignite HMI software, looking through the config editor, where we set all the parameters to match what we have in the PLC. And then we're going to test the communications. Okay, so let's go. So in our GXWorks 3, which is the software that we use to talk to the FX5U, we would have to set up our Ethernet port to match it to what we have on our Adroit HMI, be it a PC or a laptop. So we will map. In my case here, I have an IP address of 192.168.0.30, and the port, we use the standard port of 1280. So we must make sure that that is correct. And then from the mapping perspective, our global labels, we would then map to whatever we want to see in our Adroit software. We would map here and give it an address, assign it to whatever inputs, outputs, data registers, etc. And this is the range that we have in the FX5. Okay, so once we've assigned all our information that we want to send across to the Adroit, then we are basically set from a PLC perspective. Looking at the Adroit side, when we run the application launcher, we can actually go down to the second tab, which says Ignite HMI Configuration. And from there, we can open up the config editor. Once we're in the config editor, we can then say, click on the agent server configuration and drill down to the driver configuration, which would bring up this particular dialog box. Over here, we have preloaded our sort of standard, mostly common PLCs that are on the market at the moment. Let me show you a little bit bigger. And today we're going to choose the Mitsubishi Ethernet driver generation 2, or second generation, sorry, which is the one that talks to the FX5 Ethernet port. If you look on the right-hand side of the config editor, we have a help document, and wherever you've clicked on a device, on the left-hand side of the screen, you will be able to get the associated document or the driver document explaining the protocol and how to set it up. And so all we do here is we do a right click on the Mitsubishi Ethernet driver to say add device, and we have to give it a name. The name I've given mine at the moment is called FX5U, but you're limited to 27 characters, but there's certain ones that you can't use there. So you've got quite a range of naming conventions that you've got there. So once you've done that, you will be prompted with another dialog where you would set the IP address and also to match the type of PLC that you've got there. So as you can see here, the default that it's showing in here is 192.168.3.39, which is incorrect. So I have to change it. And it's also showing me that I've got a Q series PLC, which is also incorrect. So I will then change it to the corresponding IP address that I've set up in the PLC and set it up to the correct model of the PLC. So once we've done that, then we're basically good to go. I then have to check on my PC that I've set the IP address to the same range as what I have in the PLC. So as you can see here, my PC is actually set up for 192.168.0.20, which is in the same range as what I have on the FX5U, with a submask of 255.255.255.0. Okay, once I've set that up, I can then go to the command prompt and I can just ping, just to make sure that I have connectivity to the thing. If I do not have connectivity, I will get a timeout, as shown on the screen here. If I do have connectivity, it'll try it 4 times and give me the result thereof. In this case, perfect, everything's set up correctly. So that's basically that. That's the sort of configuration setup for the driver. What we'll do now, I'll just show you quickly, and then we'll go into the demo, and I'll show you exactly how it's done there. So we will add agents to the HMI. So we will open the designer, open the agent configurator where we will create and scan the tags. And in my case, I'm going to have one for a digital output to tell me that the motor is running, and also an analog input to show me that what the voltage of the motor is. We will log this so we can see a trend, and we'll also set a high and a low alarm just to show you the ease of how to set up the configuration. And this is all done through the agent configurator, which is shown on the right-hand side here. So briefly, basically, if I'm setting up a digital tag, I will create it with a name. I will then add it. I can then hit the edit button and go and change the text that comes up if I really wanted to, or I can then just go straight to the scanning, and I can map it to the address that I have in that I've assigned in the GXWorks 3 for the FX5U. In this case, it's a Y0, which is an output. And I've given it a scan rate of 500 milliseconds, and then all I do is hit the scan button and then say OK, and having chosen the device up at the top here and started it. That's the ease of adding a digital agent. From an analog agent, exactly the same. I give it a name, I can edit it, where I can then change the device span. I can give it an engineering span. In my case, it was 0 to 10. And then I can set the high level and the low level alarm limits. Once I've done that, I can then go and scan it. So I'll choose the device again. I will give it the address that I've assigned in the PLC to this one, which is then D0. And then scan it at 1,000, or you can choose whatever scan rate you want, depending on how many tags you have on your screen, just to not to clutter the screen or make it slow. And then you can scan it. Once it's scanned, I can then do the logging of this one. So in this case, I'm logging it for 5 minutes and at 1 second intervals, just to give us some sort of trend. And then from the alarm perspective, I'm having set the high and the low levels, I'm activating them and sending them across, and they will be displayed. I've deselected the acknowledgement required just to make it easy for us. Okay, so once all that's been done, we can then open the designer. I've added, or we can add, a trend, an alarm viewer, a gauge, and a label just to show you what the value is for the motor, for the voltage, and also displaying a motor where we can, from a color behavior, set it to running or stopped. So then we can launch it, test it from the operator, and see if all the device works. So at this stage, let me break away from the presentation, and I will run from the application launcher. Let me start the Adroit. So I'm going to just run the demo configuration. And as you'll see what happens here, the agent server and the Ignite server will start up. And once they are started, it then runs the operator. So the operator will be running. From here, we can actually look at the batch plant. And there it is there. But what I want to do is show you let me just break away from here. Now that we've got it up and running and launched, let me take you to what I was showing you earlier on the config editor. So exactly what we saw in the presentation, the agent server configuration, the driver configuration. Here we have it on the screen, and we can see here, if I open this one up, my FX5U driver is running and it's green. Just to show you the configuration setup here, this is what was set up. So that's all sorted out there. This was the help document that comes up. And here we go. It sort of shows you all the configuration settings, what everything means. And you can page through this and go through all the supported addresses, etc., etc. So once that's there, let's just say finish for this one. We can also go down to the utilities. We can have a look at the driver monitor. So this will show me that, yes, I have a FX5U device connected. And if I go to the monitor, I can then type in 1, and I can have a look at the data scope. So this is basically telling me that this is what the transactions are happening from the PLC to the SCADA system. Okay, so everything seems to be active there. Okay, so these are just testing utilities that we have built in to the Adroit system. Okay, so let's go back to my my demo. And from here, let me start the designer. So once the designer's running, I will take you through the configuration of the agents. So let's just have a look at open up a mimic so we can see this is where we have our batching mimic and we can configure it. If I open the agent configurator, I can then see that here's my digital signal for the motor run. So I can say if I want to edit it, I can change the off state and the on state, change the text there. I can refresh, I can update it. I can then, if I come down here for the scan, this is where it's being scanned. So here's the device, the FX5U. This is where I put in the address. And you can see it's scanning at the bottom here. No problem. Same thing for the analog. This is the tag that I created. We can edit it here. We can see, okay, maybe let me change the high level to say 7 and the low level to say 3. We can update them. If I hit the refresh button, I can see exactly what's happening on the screen. I'm going to turn the dial to 9.1. Refresh, there we go. We have 9.1 coming through there. That would mean that I would have a high alarm that we can test now. So that's basically what we have from a agent configuration perspective. If I then open up the mimic that I created, here we have a label which will give us the value, what is running, a gauge to show us what is the actual same signal that we're using for the label, and there's just a different gauge over here. We have an alarm viewer at the bottom, which will show me where my 2 alarms will be coming from. And then from a trend perspective, we've set it up over here. So let's just show you quickly from an editing perspective. If I edit the chart by clicking on the smart tag in the top right-hand corner, I can then say, this is the chart that I'm having. I've got my tag here, motor 1, which is my analog value that's coming in. I've set up my axis from 0 to 10, so we've got a full range for the tag. We can set up titles, we can set up the legend, which anything, and the same for the gauge. All the gauge I'm doing here, I've got a display value behavior. The display value is taking in my motor 1 value, which is my analog value, and it's just showing the value there. Over here on the label, what we've got here is a display value, but we're showing it with a bit of text in it with the value that is coming from the test rig. On the digital side of things, we can then hit the smart tag again, choose child behaviors, and then we can choose which child behavior I've got. There was path number 2, so this little box over here. I have put a color behavior on. So this will tell me when my motor 1 run signal is present, it will be green, and when it's off, it'll be red, and it's in the digital state. Okay, so let's just show you in the operator. If I open up my window, on my test rig, I can turn my motor off, it'll go red, and turn it back on again, it'll go green. When I turn the dial, I can then bring the dial down. The display value will change, and this other gauge will change. If I take it right down below 3, we will get an alarm. There's my alarm for the low voltage signal. We can see it in the trend up top here. We'll just turn it right up, turn it to full scale again, and then there we have it. Simple and very easy to configure. Any questions, anybody? No questions? That's fine. Okay, well, thanks very much for joining us today. Oh, Dave, you got a question.
No, I just wanted to say thanks, John. It was
Okay.
I thought that was very clear and very easy and very concise. Thank you.
Okay, great stuff. Join us next time. We'll set up another workshop during the course of the next couple of weeks, and please join us for that. Thank you. Goodbye.